joined by Ambassador Ian Kelly, a career diplomat who served as the U.S. ambassador to the Republic of Georgia during the Trump administration. He also previously served as U.S. ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or OSCE, from 2010 to 2013. Ambassador Kelly, thanks so much for being here with us. Wagner's leader, Prigozhin, will be exiled to Putin-friendly Belarus as part of his deal to end the two-day rebellion. And I know details here are shrouded in a bit of secrecy, but is he really safe? And why would he even agree to that in the first place?
Well, to answer your last question first, I think he agreed to it because he wanted to save his own skin. I think he was surprised that he didn't get some support anyway from some of the leadership of the Russian military. So I think he had a choice between continuing into Moscow with his I don't know how many thousands of troops, but it would have led to a big bloodbath, and I think.
But don't you think he anticipated that in the first place? When you say to save his own skin and kind of, change course, didn't he anticipate that for starters, or no?
Well, he didn't get what he wanted. He wanted Putin to agree to his main demand, which was to fire the Minister of Defense, Shoigu, and then the chairman of their equivalent of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Gerasimov. That didn't happen. Putin did not budge on that. And I think he read the writing on the wall that there was going to be no uprising within the ministry to get rid of these two leaders either. So I think he basically kind of cut his losses. Yeah,
it would have just been a massive bloodbath. You're a longtime observer of this part of the world. The Soviet Union famously collapsed not long after a failed coup back in 1991, 8 years before Putin decided to, when he was named leader. How did the Wagner Group's short-lived rebellion compare to that?
Well, I think it was very different. For one thing, there was opposition to a right-wing coup, and that's basically what this looked like it was going to turn out to be, that you had some far-right forces who were concerned about the progress of the war. But in 1991, you had a democratic uprising from below, and you had a leader to galvanize that opposition, and that was Yeltsin. And there is no, I think, revolution from below that's possible right now. There really is no organized opposition in Moscow.
So in saying that, I've asked all the guests this morning, is this the beginning of the end of Putin? Do you disagree, or what is his future hold from here, particularly as he is kind of nursing a bruised ego and is probably feeling extremely vulnerable right now?
I'm sure he feels very vulnerable. And I think the main reason he feels vulnerable is that his power really derived from his ability to provide security and stability for the elites around him. And any sort of threats to that stability and security would come from external forces. Well, this came from within. And he really was unable to really marshal any kind of resistance against Prigozhin. All the roadblocks melted away. I think a lot of the elites now are going to wonder, I think this guy is fatally weakened.
Yeah, and where does it go from here? Amazing to hear their story, that they've been longtime friends and allies since Prigozhin was, a restaurant caterer. Where do the two men, their relationship, the future go from here? Ambassador Kelly, thank you so much for joining us here on Morning in America.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.